Come on, go live. Hello, I am live. I keep going live and the assistant tell me I am live. Here we go. Happy Monday, everyone. Is one of those weeks of the year where conflict happen. Why? Because we're human, because we need to meet with family. We need to meet with that aunt that is keep telling us either your partner is not good enough, or he's too good, or where you're single. The point of this conversation is we all have conflict in our personal and business life. And because this is a friend conversation, I decide to bring a friend that this conversation happened many, many times in private and just happened to be an exceptional hostage negotiator, a captain for a unit in Texas, and we even present together in a hostage negotiation conference. And I have the chance to see her presentation dealing with a person who was nuts on the bucket, and she managed it in a way that everybody was safe. So who's better to talk about family conflict and surviving Thanksgiving? My dear friend, Melanie. How you doing, love?
I am good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure always. And like I says, we have this conversation in private many, many times. So why we not invite people to be in this conversation about conflicting situations with family members and surviving Thanksgiving? One of the things that happen in United States, we have Thanksgiving in Canada, but it's different than Thanksgiving in United States. In United States is usually the only event during the year that you travel to see family because the snow is not so bad. You can plan this with months in advance, and usually nobody works on Thursday and Friday. It's an excuse to get revenge for the whole family. So what happened with this, every family is dysfunctional, every relationship is dysfunctional. But we were talking before that when we met with family, we assume that people is going to forgive us and forget about certain behaviors, and we should do the same. It's not the base of communication, Melanie, no?
No.
So first of all, we need to be respectful. How we active listening to not generate conflict, but try to diminish and have a peaceful conversation from a hostile negotiator, from a person who decades has been training with this and exercise it. Because we always says, you can take a training with us, but your own experience, the devil's know for being old and being the devil, is what you grab from that training to real life. How we do this, how we have listen in silence, being present when we need to hear what other people need to say.
Yeah, communication skills begin very early, and how you dictate how you're going to communicate as you get older. It all changes and you evolve and you figure out different things. Um, I think going into the field that I went in, it I was able to have some education and rationale behind the theories, and they work. So it's helpful not just in the business, but it's also helpful in your personal life because every family has some form of conflict.
So we have, let's put the Karen. We talked about the Karen figure last week. We have a aunt, a grandmother, a family member, or family friend that is the Karen. They're no matter how good you're doing, but and they're going to try to bring conflict to the table. What is the first thing to ditch the bullet and try to avoid the Karen and go back to a peaceful conversation?
I'm not really sure that you're going to be able to avoid it, but you can expect.
Yeah, avoid the conflict. You're not going to avoid the Karen, but you is a way to ditch the bullet.
And everything that we do is about adaptability. You have to be able to adapt to the things around you. The good thing about knowing you have someone in your family who's going to say something that's going to stir the pot, let's just say, is the fact that you know it. So you can adapt early on and figure out, okay, well, this year I don't want to go into this conflict. I've fallen into it before. It's a rabbit hole. I get nowhere. Everybody leaves with bad feelings. So I'm going to do something different. And that just takes practice and figuring out what the best way to go about that would be.
I'm going to tell you from the behavioral standpoint that something that I learned with having parents or diplomat. You need to arrange the table. One of the reasons that I'm such a control freak when I have a dinner is you can mitigate conflicts from the point before. I send a Google Doc to all my friends, even they're really good friends, asking who you don't want to be sitting next to, who's coming to the dinner, be politely avoid certain topics, then I do know they're going to be conflicted. And I ask for the food menu, allergies and considerations. I find out that you avoid a lot of things, the pre-setting and pre-arranging. Says, well, I don't want to be sitting next to Mary and I don't want to be sitting next to John. Okay, great. I'm going to put John on the other side, or I'm going to put John in another table. One of the good things about Thanksgiving is you can use the justification that because it's a small space, I need to make 2 tables. You separate the conflict. Food. Oh, I don't like to eat this. I don't eat turkey. I'm a vegetarian. No problem. I'm going to make a 2-foot turkey. So planning is an extremely important phase to avoiding conflict. When you are called to a violent situation and a conflicting situation or a hostage situation, you go kind of blindness. But in the point that you're getting near to the situation, you gather information to know how to prepare. How important is preparing to avoid conflict in a family situation like the one I planted?
Yeah, I would say extremely important depending on your family dynamic. That's why I say it's business or personal. It doesn't really matter. The more you know, the more you should be able to adapt and figure out what's going to work. Intel is huge. I mean, if you can get, and in a family environment, you have a lot of intel. You know all of these things. So adapt and prepare.
Should the host, in this case, the hostage negotiator, because people doesn't know how a hostage situation happens. You have barricades that when somebody tried to commit suicide is never fun because people don't understand how much you guys do to make sure that no matter what is the situation, that person is in that cliff. You need to get out of the cliff and resolve that when the 2 feet are on the land, and how risky it is for you guys and everything that you do to avoid that situation. And the other one is the hostage taker. You don't know what is the situation, but it's things that you can prepare and negotiate and do. How important is for, in this case, the hostage negotiator or the host of the event to set rules as soon as everybody closes the door. Like your cousin comes and says, do not freaking talk about the uncle's girlfriend. We know it's a bimbo, but it's forbidden. You talk about that, and I'm going to take your turkey and your alcohol. Is not going to happen.
Those are conversations that you have prior of your expectations if you're the host. If you're the host, you feel responsible for everybody. So anything that you know that you can do before everybody comes together to get ahead of any potential problems, you should absolutely do it. I still think that even though you plan, always be prepared because somebody's not going to listen. Somebody's going to overlook what you said and not think that it was that important. And maybe they haven't been in the family that long. Maybe they don't realize how significant it is that you say something to them. So I think that goes to say a lot about what you can do ahead of time to try to prevent things from happening. But be prepared for when they do.
So alcohol is not a good company where you do these things. We know the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, people get together early or they come in already happy to the event. So it's okay to say someone like, it's enough. We're going to put water in that glass. How you avoid when somebody start getting aggressive with that situation? How you de-escalate when alcohol is involved? You have many situations where alcohol is involved or drugs, and people is not rational. Actually, when alcohol or any substance is around or anger is around, you lost your rationality. How do you de-escalate with somebody who fixate with something? How you do it in a hostage situation so people can start understanding how difficult it is to manage those situations. You think family is difficult? Yes, it is. I always ask you guys, would you prefer to negotiate with a hostage taker or with your family? Hell yes, I prefer a hostage taker.
Yes, absolutely. I think the difference though is time, because any negotiation, we don't rush anything. Everything is planned, thought out. There's patience when there can be unless it escalates and becomes, something that you can't, you have to act. But if it's contained, you have time. And the difference is we're allowing people to vent, because venting is what's de-escalating themselves. Nobody's hearing them, nobody's listening to them. Yeah, they're on some kind of narcotic, or they're on some kind of, they've drank too much or whatever, they don't have rational thinking. But we have a lot more time in the family setting. I think that you're going to have, one of two things. You have the patient ones that are like, hey, you need to stop and slow down, or you're going to have to leave. And then you probably have other ones that, this is Texas, so they just take care of it, and that person's no longer there, and they just remove them from the situation. But if you want to do it peacefully, the more assertive you are at somebody who is under an influence, the more assertive they're going to be back.
I read a study.
You can't start out that way.
I read a study that says on the 90s and 2000s, they found out that when they put on the condom wrap, unsafe sex leads to AIDS and venereal disease, people is more prompt to use the condom. It says, what the fuck are you talking, Susan? We're talking about conversations. What I'm saying is, when you inebriate it with any kind of substance, people tend to follow one command easy than options. Yeah. So when somebody is under the influence from many things, it's one command. And sometimes the command is use your inner voice. The park is there. If you smoke, it's perfect. It says, why don't you take a smoke break and come back? It's only one command, and tell them what to do. Because when the stakes are high, people don't know where to go. They go in a rabbit hole. Have you find that, beside the studies show, real when people is inebriated, how to control the situation?
See, no, that's exactly right. And in any negotiation, that's what you're going to do. You're going to limit distractions. This is where your conflict comes in when you're talking about the family. Family's not necessarily just going to stop because you ask them to step out, because we need one person to talk to them and give them clear direction. They're going to be less likely to do that because there's more emotions involved. On my side of it, there's no emotions involved because I don't even know this person. I have no emotional aspect to it. So I think it's good that you're kind of talking, because I don't know how you can control everything around you, and sometimes you can't. So I don't know.
And we need to understand that the host has been doing shopping, dealing with the cleaning, dealing with your own kids, your pets, organizing the house, who you're going to put, your own emotions as a negotiator in this situation that is a hostage negotiator. When you are you're the hostage taker, you're the hostage victim, and you are the person who need to moderate. Let's talk about the person who need to negotiate in this situation. What techniques you find that are good to de-escalate yourself, either breathing, either concentrate.
I can't hear you. There you are. Oh.
Now you can hear me?
Now I can hear you.
You see, I've been taken hostage for the freaking mic here. It's lovely, bedazzled, but
I was going to sit here patiently.
So what are the techniques that you learn from high stake situations that you can tell 3 or 5 points where you are about to kill someone and you feel that I know it sounds horrible, but I have those, like, now more people I know, more I understand serial killers. Even I have a t-shirt And sometimes when I have family reunions, I use that t-shirt under my sweater says, I open the sweater says, beware. And I close my t-shirt, my sweater says, more people I know, more I understand serial killers. What you can tell a hostage, the host of the event, they can do to de-escalate themselves in order to manage and control the crazy family situation?
Well, first of all, that's probably the most important part because you can't de-escalate someone else if you are not de-escalating yourself. And it's just so funny because I am the host this year, and I have a lot of family coming, and although I don't worry about it. I do have what you call in law enforcement the command presence. I don't know, and I feel like if you're coming into my home, you're going to be respectful. I mean, this is my family, whether they agree or disagree. Now, I already have had those conversations as we discussed about maybe don't have this conversation or don't stir this or you know what the limitations are. Don't do that. But if a conflict were to arise, one, I do feel like it should be me as the host. Um, but if I'm too emotionally invested, I'm going to recruit somebody else because that's another thing in negotiations. We have a hard time, like when you're the primary and you're the one talking, to have to give up that role. It's almost like it goes to your ego. You just don't want to let that go. You've invested and you want to see it, but sometimes you have to know you're not the one. You're not going to be able to be the one to finish this. So one, recognizing that maybe you're not going to be able to handle it if it comes to that situation. And two is the non-aggressive at first, if you can help it, direction. Another huge thing that people often overlook, deflecting. Just deflect the conversation to something else. You know what matters to the mass majority of the people that are there. So deflect to something and get the center of attention off the person who's seeking it. Just get the center of attention away from them. Separate people if you can. And if they have to leave, they have to leave. I mean, that's all there is to it. You would hope that you don't have a situation that you can't contain in some way. But like I said, adaptability is the biggest thing. You're going to have to roll with the things that are coming with you. I feel very confident in hosting, but the moment I see any issue, if it were to start to happen, I'm not going to let it get too far. I'm going to be in the middle of it. I'm going to be paying attention to, because I already know what dynamics might be there. So I'm already looking for them. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be preparing, and I'll deal with it.
On a NOC, Negotiation Operations Center, I spell it correctly, the NOC?
Mm-hmm.
So you have different roles. You have the host and negotiator, you have the coach, you have the intel, you have the scriber, and you have the chief of command. That is the one, either you're not in the same room, even you're not punch on the phone, is the one who have the exterior. Intel is the one who collect all the information to make sure that nobody step in anything. Intel is the one who get information, exterior and internal. A scriber is the take the storyboard of everything. And the coach is the person that is the conscience of the host negotiator. Nobody talk with the host negotiator if the coach doesn't intervene. And the coach is this, what we call the second brain, that is perfect in any situation. You always need to have a coach, either in a business negotiation, either in a family situation, or either in any de-escalation. That's the reason when we talk with human resource people says, you cannot fire this person if it's conflict alone. You cannot have this conversation with a toxic personality alone. You always need to have someone that complement your weakness and you complement that person's weakness. We do an exercise as A, B, C, D. What are your A's is where you thrive about it, and your D's are where you should be illegal for you to manage. So in any situation, you need to look somebody that their D is your A and vice versa. And that is the person you need to have a coach. I don't know, I go with my partner with socializing. He hates socializing. I hate it most. But we have a coding. When we are drowning, we look each other, and that view on the eyes is no, I need rescue, or I need to go and rescue you. So you always need to have a coach, even in a family situation. Even if it says 5, one of them need to be your coach.
Well, and in business too, I mean, you think about it, just because you're a supervisor, or you're a manager, that doesn't mean that every single person is just going to like you and agree with you, never argue with you, never have another opinion than you. And the way that you speak, like I give an example, there's of all the staff that I work with, because I know them, I may talk to one way, but then there's another one I can't talk to that way. I have to talk a different way, or else it's going to create problems for the environment. Me personally, if you ask me, I should be able to just say something, give a directive, that should be it. But over years of learning communication techniques, I know that that will not work. So I have my feelings to the side on it and do what I know works. Always having somebody else there, whether they're a witness, or maybe they communicate a little bit better than you. Maybe you're looked at too much of an authority figure, and you need somebody that they know that they could talk to later, that'll still have be representing your values. Those kind of things I think are hugely important, because we're talking about family today, but your work becomes your family, and you spend a lot of time with these people, and you do get invested. And families fight, families don't always get along, but it's what you learn to do about it, especially if you're in a leadership position. You've got to be able to handle yourself appropriately, or you're just not going to make it.
It's polite, proper, indicated, or contraproducent to when you start having grace and everybody on the table says, okay, guys, I love you all, but I'm going to kick your right ass if you talk about this and this and this. I tend to do it. My friends know me. I'm not oatmeal. I'm not a easy person. My friends know and says, I'm going to grab you from the back of your pants and going to throw you on the bathroom and get you like my mom used to get us as a kid if you start talking about the thing that you should be talking. Okay, and I have Whiskey. Whiskey, hi, say hi. She's going to be here. Okay, let's do this. So I love you too. We're talking about conflict family. You're the conflict on the family. We know that. So so I set my boundaries. And when people come to the table and says, guys, we know that you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're left, you're extremely right. Great. I love you for the way you are. But do we know that influence, and maybe not even what you think today is going to be what you're thinking tomorrow, but the relationship we have today, you can ruin it today and not recover that relation in 3 months. So let's avoid having a conversation about that and stop it. It's okay to put rules, no?
Oh, absolutely. My conversations are more, because everybody right now, I mean, the media has just, they're striving for us to have conflict over our political values. And it's set for us to have conflict. And my opinion on it is there's no reason to, because on a day-to-day basis, especially involving my family or my work, it honestly doesn't matter. Whatever happens politically, I'm not going to be able to change that. It's not going to change how my work day goes. It's not going to change how I interact with my family. So those are things to diffuse really quickly, because those are what we call, that would be like in a negotiation, that would be a hot button, that's too hot. As soon as you hit it, you get a reaction. That means it's too hot. You want to hit on the things that gets a positive reaction, because then you know that that's the way you should be leading the conversation. So, and listen to people, even if they're saying something that you can't honestly agree with, or you think's the stupidest thing you've ever heard. Hear them out, rephrase what they said so that they know that you heard them, and then say whatever it is you feel like is going to kind of either, I really appreciate your opinion on that, but we do have different viewpoints. So, for today, do you want some pumpkin pie? I mean, or what do we want to do? Because we're not going to agree on this, so there's no sense in having the conversation. But I appreciate you telling me how you feel. I love you. You're my family.
One of the things that I do is like, oh my God, when you were talking, your food get cold. Let me heat your food. That is completely through him, like, where it was an important, like, no, is that I need to ditch it. So you talk about deflecting, and maybe some people don't understand the concept and the importance of deflecting. In a personal conflict, with a pet, actually with cats, they says you never punish a cat, you deflect their attention to something else. One of my cats like nibbling at 3 o'clock in the morning in my back and drive me crazy, wake me up. So what I do is I have a pillow that it's a nibbling pillow. So as soon as she come to me, what I do is I put it on the pillow, I deflect, and she stopped doing it slowly. So you need to deflect the situation. Yelling to the cat is not going to happen. Yelling to people is not going to happen. You're going to escalate. So can you give us a little nibble on pillows that, or how you do the deflecting, 3 or 5 points where you can deflect a situation and look like the posh hostage, tip of the tongue, hosted of the event and get a piece meal?
Well, like I said, the first one would be, I appreciate your opinion. Maybe my opinion is going to be different, but man, let's go over here and do this. Deflecting is pretty easy in the family situation if you have a lot of family there, because there's always something else happening. Whether you're acting like this conversation that's happening over here all of a sudden sparked your, oh, I'm sorry, give me just a second. And then you're going to move over to this and get yourself out of it. That's another way. I don't know. I mean, I think more at work too, because especially if you're a manager or you're in charge of people, or you're in kind of what you call one of those hot situations where maybe something didn't go right. And you have to address it. Absolutely. Whether you're the supervision or just the employee, something has to be addressed. You can do that. But and deflecting, don't deflect before there's an understanding if you can help it. So if I ask you to tell me something and I'm trying to listen to you, and then all of a sudden I go squirrel and I'm gone, you didn't get anywhere with that conversation. It's probably going to circle around and hit you again. So deflect at the appropriate time is another thing. So like at work, you're having a conversation, or with your family, you're having a conversation. It's a hot one. You got to have it. Everybody's heard each other, but you can tell it's not going to go the right way, because even though you heard each other, you don't agree with each other. That would be a time to pull in deflection. That's a time to look for something else meaningful to either draw you out or draw them out or change the conversation. You literally just have to kind of practice it and do it. I don't know. It's worked for me numerous times, especially with like really, really upset people who you can't get in a word because they can't get past the emotion that they're in. You got to let it kind of play out. And then you know that you don't want to go into whatever just got them there. So you have to find something else. You have to deflect to something else.
I found out the common enemy is our friend. So you always, no matter how divided you are, you can find a common enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, the butcher who gave me this turkey should be in jail. This turkey is so freaking dry. He was wrong. And now you deflect it. Sometimes deflection is not that complicated. It's complex because you need to extract your own biases, your own opinions to the sum of the piece of everybody else. Your final thoughts, because we took you from lunch and I went extremely respectful, and we try to keep it PG-13 in this because we can go to the heavy. But believe it or not, the nuance, the notches that we give you today is helping you as a host, as a guest, as a member of a community, that you're going to be right or you're going to have peace. I have 3 types of people in my life. You give me peace, future, or money. One of them is going to be affecting the other one. My money is, then I don't want to have a therapist or the police intervene after the dinner. You give me peace because I'm going to invite you back. You give me future because I'm not going to end up in jail when you choke you with your own turkey. So, final thoughts about how to deal with toxic people, complicated conversation, and for personal experience and hostile negotiator experience. We're going to close it with your thoughts.
All I can tell you is don't be the toxic person yourself. Recognize when it's you. So look at yourself first before you look at others. And then if you do find yourself in a position where you are able to intervene and help for a better outcome, whether that be family, work, wherever, then definitely be that person. Look for those opportunities and jump on them. Practice your skill set. It's everywhere around you, from the frustration of walking in a grocery store, the frustration of trying to park your car when somebody can't park straight or they pull in right for you. Um, just the way that you handle yourself, you can practice that. Do you ever just walk up to somebody? We know nothing about each other. We always assume. But I know just the other day at Walmart, I was walking through Walmart and there was a older woman there she was by herself, and I just thought she just looks beautiful today. And so I just felt the need to stop her and tell her how beautiful she looked. There's not enough of that. There's not enough of that kindness, that understanding that people really are going through things that we could never understand. I can't look at you and know everything that's going on with you just by your look. And when I see a really, really rebellious attitude, for me, after all these years, the automatic question is, what's going on with that person? Because if you have escalated to this extreme thing over something that I'm like, this is not that big of a deal, that makes me start to be concerned that there's more that you're not telling me. And maybe I'm the one that you're going to finally get that off your chest and change the outcome of your evening or your year or whatever it is. I would like to be a person.
Can you tell us in 5 minutes about the situation where the guy was on the top of the tree?
Oh, Lord.
Fast. I know it's fascinating because I hear you for an hour, more than an hour on the presentation when it was 2021. My God, that's the last time we see each other and have fun. I need to get myself invited to the hosted conference in Texas again, guys. Everything is big in Texas. They're fun too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that, I'm like, how the heck you managed that dude to get under the tree, out of the tree? The guy she was called. I make it fun so we can go to Juicy. She was called. She showed up. There were police, TV, people, and this guy was on top of the tree and says, "I'm not leaving the tree." Not only he left the tree, he agreed to do it. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that situation? I think it's fun because it's fixed and the guy was okay, but it was complicated to manage.
Yeah, he was under the influence, so he was not thinking clearly, but he had a weapon, and he had tied a rope to his neck and the tree, and it was everything that you could possibly imagine that it would be, from the hostility to the, get out of here, but don't leave because I need you to do stuff, to finally ending. I think we just emotionally wore him down. And I think he found it hard to be mean to me, which was a good thing. He was not so nice to my partner at the time, but he found it hard to be just mean in general. And I think once he finally, and nobody was actually, they think you're going to go in and do all this stuff. They think it's going to get very physical and it's going to be very violent. And they're scared to come down or they're scared to come out because of the repercussions of that. If we tell you that I tell you exactly what's going to happen. And as long as you do what you say, that's exactly what's going to happen. So after a very long time of lots of tears and crying and yelling and kind of a garbled conversation because he was not in his right mind, he finally agreed to come down. He agreed to everything. I made one concession for him that I knew I promised I could keep. And he came on down. And then it was maybe week and a half, 2 weeks later, he came up here and just wanted to talk and say thank you. That he definitely was under the influence of something. He doesn't remember a lot of it, but he did appreciate the way that it was handled. So that's probably the best that you can ask for. I mean, because I didn't want to see what would happen to him if he did what he was planning on doing. That's not something I wanted to see because I would have remembered it I remember it now for the rest of my life. But
let's remember that he had a rope under his neck. So if he would be any step doing wrong, he would jump from that tree, being conscious or unconscious that he have a rope under his neck. And if it was simple asphyxiation, you can say, but if he broke his neck, there's no way to coming back.
Right. So I did everything I could not to have to see that. And it worked.
Melanie, my dear, dear friend, you're a badass. And I still remember going for drinks one of those nights, and a guy came to you like, dude, you don't know what you're dealing with. She looks so innocent, but she can kick your ass. And that's what I remember always about you, how kind you says the guy, no. And me thinking, you can kick his ass. No, but you always negotiate. You're always polite. You always keep your posture. And that's something that I admire. Everyday work, not only when you need to work with someone, but in your everyday work and any simple situations. And I adore you for it, because I always like to learn from the best. My love, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. I hope to see you soon.
Me too. We need to look for an excuse to get soon later. Guys, I will see you tomorrow, like every day. I think we still have 2 more weeks to go live. 3 weeks. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.